Thank you.
So, why study thermodynamics? Now, academically, unless you do thermodynamics, you will not be able to do the follow-on courses like heat transfer, where we calculate the transfer of heat from one body to another, or internal combustion engine, which is very much necessary for you to understand how to power your vehicles. Uh, then refrigeration air conditioning, you are very familiar with. Unless you do thermodynamics, you cannot study that. Then propulsion, then gas dynamics. These are some of the courses that needs thermodynamics as a prerequisite. And for the real world, when you go out to do your first job, then you must understand that energy is one of the top challenges we face today, right? And energy demands are very much related to the other challenges of clean water, clean air, better health, poverty. Now, you have to understand how the energy systems work. Then only you will be able to meet these needs of clean water, clean air, and energy shortage needs, around the world. And we all know that energy demands are continuously rising, right? So unless you are learn to tackle them, say for example, when I was a student here, we never had these solar collectors that you now have above the rooftops of many of the hostels, right? At that time, we didn't have so much of renewable energy. We didn't have this cheap photovoltaic cells. So, uh, where we are transforming the energy from the sun to some other form of energy. So, to analyze these devices in a macroscopic manner, we need thermodynamics. Understanding of thermodynamics is very much necessary. So that is why you must study thermodynamics well. Now, in this course, what we'll do is we'll cover some basic concepts. We will study some devices where you are transforming energy from one form to another. We will learn the properties of the materials. It could be liquids, fluid, or solids, which take part in the thermodynamic process. Then we will also understand the thermodynamic behavior of solids, liquids, gases. We must understand the thermal properties, thermodynamic properties, which are required to calculate the amount of energy conversion from one to the other. Then we have to evaluate the amount of energy, work, and heat transfer process. Now, all these are guided by some laws, right? So this is law of mass conservation. Now, law of energy conservation, right? Because energy is transformed from one type to another type, but it is neither lost nor created. Then we must learn some the details of some applications. Say, for example, there are many devices in a power plant, right? There is boiler. I'll talk about it later in more detail. There is boiler where the steam is generated. There is a turbine where we extract work from the steam, right? And then finally we generate electricity. Or we could study a refrigeration system or air conditioning system where our input is we are connecting that cord, we get electricity from the outlet, and that turns a motor, right? And then that is work. We spend work, and then we get some, cold heat transfer. We have some heat transfer, right? So from the hot room, the heat is being taken away and thrown outside. So I have given you two simple systems. Another very important is in the transportation sector, our internal combustion engines, which are where the fuel is mainly our petrol or diesel, and then the output is work output. You get energy to turn the wheels and the car moves. Of course, nowadays, because there is scarcity of oil and we want to reduce our import bill, and also we don't want so much of pollution, because pollution, I told you, clean air, we want clean air, right? And you know what is happening in Delhi because of the pollution from the transportation sector, the city is almost choking. So we have to have alternate means of, energizing our car, right? So instead of internal combustion engines, nowadays we are having battery as a storage system of energy, and then we are having electric motor to drive the car. Of course, to charge your battery, you either have to use renewable energy, right? Or you have to use your electrical outlet where the electricity is generated by burning coal in some power station. So all these things have to be properly analyzed, and and we will, after you complete the course, you'll be able to analyze them in a macroscopic manner, right? Say, for example, I have some heat transfer equipment in a power plant. So only thermodynamics cannot help me design that heat transfer equipment. It will uh, allow me to specify it in a macroscopic sense, but the detailing has to be done. You still have to understand design. You still have to understand stress analysis, the mechanics that you have been taught about how, if there is a force, how things bend, how it fails, then fluid mechanics, many things are involved. But thermodynamics will give us uh, in a macroscopic sense, you will be able to specify the equipment properly. Right. Then what is the outcome of this course? After you do the course, you'll be able to identify the different subsystems of a large thermodynamic systems, because each of these subsystems have to be analyzed separately, and you will be able to follow the heat transfer path and the work transfer path, right? That is very important. And the actual subsystem is extremely complex, right? You must be able to simplify them, without but able to capture the physics. Okay. Then you have to note the temperature, the pressure, the density. Right. Also, if you are given a particular substance, a fluid or a solid, and you are given some of the properties, say for example, pressure and temperature is given, then you should be able to find out the other properties. You should be able to read the handbooks, or you should use some correlations to find out the other properties. Because unless you get the full set of properties, you'll not be able to solve the problem. Then, given a physical setup, you should be able to formulate the associated reasonable approximation of work and heat transfer. Now, even if you are not able to, the work transfer may be extremely complex for you to capture every minute detail. But in an overall sense, you should be able to get the bulk work and heat transfer. Now, then you have to calculate the amount of work and heat transfer. You must know that work is a path function. You have already studied that in your maybe school. And if the pressure and volume is varying, you know how to calculate the work. There could be other more difficult circumstances under which you have to be able to estimate the work, and similarly heat transfer. Now, also given a physical setup, you should be able to formulate an approximate behavior and using the computer, you should be able to simulate the corresponding work and heat transfer. So that is what you will be able to do after you complete the course. Now let us, as I told you, as energy is so important in a global sense and also in a locally in India, here you will see all these energy studies that we are doing are to benefit mankind. So let us see how human resource is distributed throughout the world. If you see here, it is a little bit distorted. See, India is a little bit bloated, India and China, because it has lot of manpower, right? Lot of population, right? So why is it becoming anyway? India and China. So similarly, this is Europe, right? And this United States. Certainly India is much bigger than United States, but here it is representing the population. So you see China, India has a lot of population, and there is something here. Indonesia is quite large, while Australia is so small. It is in terms of the population. So you can see India and China in this area, we have large population, right? And let us see the energy use in these countries, throughout the world. Now here you see India has shrunk. China has also shrunk, not that much, of course, these days. So, but here you see USA, then Canada are large. So these are the countries which has very little population, but they consume lot of energy, lot of energy. And when you have lot of energy consumption, it has to do with emissions also, which pollute our environment, right? So this is how the developed and the developing nations have different energy requirements. They are very, very different. Now another thing that you must understand is that now that we want to have clean air, low emissions, we are always concerned about carbon footprint. So, I mean, the low carbon means it does not produce so much of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And so it is much more gives us much more clean air. It's healthier. Now, if you see the electricity generation in the world, you will see coal, oil, coal and gas. These three constitute more than 60% of the electricity that is generated. And thank God, the low carbon has become almost 40%. Earlier it used to be very, very small, many, many years ago. So in that front, we have progressed, right? We have more nuclear, hydropower, wind, solar, other renewables. And so this is a good thing. But still, if you look at the electricity, transport and heat together, because in the cold countries you require heat, there are a lot of process heat that you require for food processing industry, other processing industry, steel industry. Lot of heat is required in the process industry. Transportation also requires a lot of energy. So if you combine electricity, transportation and heat, then we come to the total energy. If you look at the total energy, right, and see the mix in the world, then you will see that 85% is fossil fuels, right? Oil, coal and gas. And as you know, fossil fuels are not perennial. It is going to deplete at some point of time. So, and the low carbon, which is your nuclear, hydropower, that means you get water at a certain height, and that when it is processed through the turbines, you give work output and then you run your generator. Okay, and of course biofuels, solar energy. So in the total energy mix, you see it is only 15%. Okay, but we have improved over the years. We still need to improve more, and we have to spend more time getting these low carbon energy sources, popular. Now let us look at India. So if you look at this 2017 data, now India has abundant coal, right? So if you look at the total energy, then coal is close to 50%, right? And then biomass, that means all kinds of green waste or waste, biofuels. In the villages we use cow dung and all kinds of sources of energy, right? And also waste energy from the waste. And still petroleum and other liquids is a large quantity, 25%. That probably goes mostly in the transportation sector, and also in many places we are running these generators using oil. Okay, so that is also then we have to foot all these import bills. Natural gas is another source. The nuclear, we don't have much. Like if you go to France, they have a lot of nuclear power plants, but we don't have so many. Hydroelectric we have, and other renewables. So this is but we are mainly dependent on coal. It is not that all the coal is from India. In India, the coal that we have, there is a lot of ash, right? So what we do is we get good quality coal from Australia and other places. Our energy companies, power plant companies have bought mines in Australia and other places, and from there also they get good quality coal which has low ash. So we mix it with our Indian coal, but the coal that we get from abroad has a lot of sulfur. So we will study the thermodynamics of coal combustion. We will understand it, right? And we will also study the ICE engines where you burn your petrol and diesel. That is also we'll also study burning of gas, how we can burn gas in a combustor and get energy out of it. All these things we will study. It is important to understand them, why we need to study them. Now I got this data from the Indian energy reports, and you can see how our coal, of course, usage is continuously increasing. Of course, it does not say how much is being imported. Some of the coal is imported, but see our oil use for electric generation is reducing. We are going in the right direction. And of course, we have gas. Gas, I don't know why it is decreasing, but our nuclear power has not increased that much. But we have some hydropower that we have. So this is our fossil fuel, and this is our electric generation from nuclear and hydro total. As you can see, it used to be 871. Now it is, so many 871,224 gigawatt hour, and then it has increased now, okay, to 1,246,796 gigawatt hours. Now RES means renewable energy source. This is our renewable energy source. Small hydro power plants, which government is trying to introduce these small hydro power plants. You can wherever you have a stream or some water source, you can use it. Solar, over the years it has increased a lot because this is the future. And we have quite a few wind farms. If you go to Gujarat, some of these coastal areas, and Gujarat is also having a lot of solar energy usage, and some of the coastal areas we are also building wind farms, and biogas has also we have some amount of biogas, right? So this is the subtotal. So our renewable energy source mix in India has increased over the past 5 years. Now, in terms of captive power, in terms of the power generation, there are two kinds. One is utility and the captive. What is utility? Utility is, say you have a power generating station like Kolaghat power generating station, which supplies power to the uh, power grid in West Bengal, and we draw power from that. That is a utility company. What is a captive power station? Suppose I have a steel plant. Steel plant needs lot of power, right? And you can have a captive power plant only for the steel plant. That is many steel industries, and then there are other very energy consuming industries, cement industry. Sometimes if the plant is very large, they will have their captive power plants. So this is the total mix, right? This gives the total mix. Okay. So this is how. So still in India, electricity 80%, like in the rest of the world, 80% of Indian electricity generation is from fossil fuels. That it's the same as the world over. So and 20% is from renewable energy sources. And this hydro here includes also the pump storage. Sometimes what we do is we pump the water at some times when we have spare electricity, right? Maybe through solar or some source, we pump the water and store it at some high place and then use it later on, right? That is also been included here. Small. Now we have, as you know, our oil bill in India is increasing because our it's a worrisome that if you look at our oil consumption, this is the black line, or oil consumption is increasing day by day. It's very, very worrisome, right? And it has to be met mainly from the imports because we don't have so much of oil. Now, so that is why there is a thrust. You are always hearing that we are shifting to electric vehicles, right? We are shifting to electric vehicles. Why? Because we think it'll be less polluting and we don't have to use oil. Now let us look at the electric vehicle in a broader sense. How does it impact our environment, right? Now electric vehicles, the battery that you have, that has to be charged. Now when you charge it, you have two sources. One is the thermal source, right, where you burn coal. Right? We don't have much nuclear power plants. We can burn coal, or we can have a solar power plant or wind energy from where you can charge your battery. Now, if you use our conventional electric line where the power is coming from the thermal power stations, then this you have CO is one of the pollutants. CO2, this is the CO2 line, right? And then SOx or SO2 and NO, nitrogen oxide, right? So CO2 and SO2, right? These are the biggest pollutants. Why? I told you, when you burn coal, Indian coal has lot of ash and of course carbon is always there. But the foreign coal, sometimes we make 20% of foreign coal that has lot of sulfur oxide. So these are pollutants. So here we are saying CO2 emission kgs per 100 kilometer, on average of the car or transport vehicle running 100 kilometers. And what is emission? Emission is the other ones. CO emission, SO2 emission, NO emission. It is using this scale because the CO2 emissions, it is using another scale, right? So Here, so if you look at this, so here, say here, the you can read of the say along this line. So if the ratio is say 80% thermal, 80% thermal and 20% renewable, then what is our emission? Emission here. Right. Okay. Let me go back. So here, so this is our right here. So the carbon dioxide emission will be somewhere like 17 kgs per 100 kilometer here, and our SO2 emission will be SO2 emission. We have to read it from here. It is something like 100, say 15 grams per 100 kilometer. Similarly, if you have CO2 emission, will be here somewhere here, say 45. So this is how we have to read this, right? So now current Indian scenario is 57 to 43. Okay, it is taken from a recent paper. 57 to 43 is our mix. So that means only shifting to electric vehicle is not good enough. We also have to have the source of charging our batteries also have to be considered. And when we make these batteries, right, while making these batteries also there is some carbon footprint. And what about the waste? When these batteries are get exhausted, where are you going to throw it? Say for example, all our uh, the batteries that we've used, so many of them in our uh, mobiles, how do you dispose them? That is also a source of concern, right? So while we talk of energy, we should also, along with that, we should talk of pollution also, right? Now, so what India has done is, so we had the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. This act requires large energy consumers to adhere to energy consumption norms. New buildings nowadays in India have to follow energy conservation building code, right, to meet energy performance standards, right? And in our equipment, say if you want to buy a refrigerator or if you want to buy air conditioner, you see we say Energy Star 3, Energy Star 3, Energy Star 5. So the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, right, in India enforces that every power consuming device that you sell in the market, like a refrigerator consumes electric power, right? Your air conditioner consumes electric power. So they all have to have a label that what is the efficiency. That efficiency, we will in thermodynamics class we will learn how to find out their efficiency. So, and we are talking about low carbon economy or low fossil fuel economy, right? Which is based on low carbon power sources, right? And they have less emissions and also minimum greenhouse gas, emissions in that. These are terms that you must understand, right? So when you go for an interview, it's very important that you understand these things, and you must learn that how our what we are studying in thermodynamics is going to help the country. Now this is the website of the uh, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and this is the label that you see, in our advertisements and in the equipment that we buy, right? Say for example, air conditioners, refrigerators, then our fluorescent lamps, right? Electric motors that you buy, for pumping water. All these things nowadays is mandatory that you must have this energy level. We have become very conscious about efficiency. Now in this course, you will see that there are some free books that you can use. And there are some, of course, other books also I will say, and also there are some calculators for, you will use the traditional charts for getting the properties of steam, carbon dioxide, ammonia, water, uh, air, water vapor mixture, right? So there are some places, say for example, I don't know why I can, okay, anyway. So here, these are websites where you can do that. Okay. So, and also there are some other calculators. So what will happen is, although you will have an understanding, we will show you charts about getting the properties of these different fluids. But you must also be able to, where you have to interpolate. The values are not given everywhere in the tables, but for sometimes for problems, you can also go to the website and get the properties. And these are standard textbooks, Indian edition. One is Chengal and Bowles, right? And this is the third author. This is a good book. And this is also a classical book, Sontag, Fundamentals of Thermodynamics. So Indian edition is also available. So these are the books that one has to buy, and the other books that I told you are freely, available. They are freely available. Okay. Now, if you look up these standard textbooks, it tells us what is thermodynamics. So according to these books, thermodynamics is concerned with the ways energy is stored within a body or system. I will tell you what is a system and how energy transforms from one type to another, including those which involved heat flow, work done on or by the system. So these are things that you must understand. Work done, should be able to calculate the work done, right, on or by the system. So you must understand what is a system. So involve, heat flow, right? I see. And then thermodynamics is the study of the laws. We will study the laws that govern the conservation of energy, right, from one form to another, conversion of energy from one form to another, and the direction, right, in which heat will flow. Say for example, uh, in the summer season, right, outside is hot, right? In the summer season, outside is hot. And therefore we want to cool the inside of the room, right? So already the temperature inside the room is lower than the outside temperature, but we still want to cool the room. So what do I have to do? I have to transfer heat from a low temperature room, right? And it has to be thrown outside, which is higher temperature. Is that possible? Normally, spontaneously, no. Spontaneously, heat will never flow from the room to the outside where the temperature is very high. However, if I have a hot solid, right, at say 100 degrees centigrade in contact with another solid which is cold at 20 degrees centigrade, heat will naturally flow from the hot solid to the cold solid. From high temperature to low temperature, that process is spontaneous. No effort is required, right? So heat can flow in that direction. But in the other direction, heat cannot flow spontaneously. So what we have to do, we will teach you thermodynamically how, what is the process that you have to do so that heat can be transferred from the cold room, right, to the hot outside. That is how the air conditioners are designed, right? But that is not a natural thing. So we have to artificially do it with some effort, right? And how to do it, unless you learn thermodynamics, you will not be able to understand the working of the your air conditioner. Right. And then we will also talk about availability of energy to do the work. Right. Now, I would ask you to, wherever you are, I would ask you to identify 5 systems that you see around you where energy transfer is very important, right? There are many things that you can. So let us stop for say 2, 3, maybe a minute or two, and you think of some of the sources around you in your room, wherever you are, and some energy consuming and energy transforming devices, where thermodynamics can be applied. So after a minute or so, then I will continue. Okay. Let us have a break for 5 minutes. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Are you
Yes,
able to
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
we'll have a
sir.
5-minute break. Right. After 5 minutes, I will continue.
Okay, sir.
Ah. Okay, so you may have looked around you and seen several thermodynamic systems where there is heat transfer, work transfer, either only heat transfer or only work transfer. Even if you have a coffee mug in front of you from where you are sipping coffee, that also can be analyzed thermodynamically. There is hot coffee, and then there is evaporation going on. There is vapor coming out, right? And it is getting cooled with time. So this can be analyzed. Even such a simple thing as that, you're drinking coffee in a mug can also be analyzed thermodynamically, right? Because we will teach you how say if I consider the coffee to be like water, we know that at a certain temperature, that liquid which is being exposed to the atmospheric air, how much will be the evaporation? That will come from your thermodynamics, properties, right? Or your computer that you use, right? The chips, there is heat is being generated, right? And then uh, that uh, heat is being cooled. So you are doing work by rotating your fan, then the fan is imparting kinetic energy to the air which is blowing over your chip and cooling it. All of these subsystems can be analyzed through thermodynamics. Say your cell phone, car, the combustion, engine inside your car, the whatever is driving your train, bus, air conditioners, your lighting system, television, boilers, furnaces, everywhere you have some energy transfer from one form to the other or from one place to the other. And so all needs to be analyzed using the our principles of thermodynamics. But it will give us a macroscopic view of it. Macroscopic view of it. Say, for example, with this thermodynamic analysis, I will not be able to tell that what is the distribution of temperature in the chip, right? That I will not be able to tell. I'll only be able to tell that to be able to maintain some average temperature of the chip, what is the heat input, what is the heat output. So bulk analysis is possible using thermodynamics. So these are the different units of pressure that we will use, right? 1 atmosphere is 101,325 kilopascal. Then this is equal to so many bar that we'll use. Of course, now we don't, in India, we don't use pound force feet square, but in other countries they use it. Right? And of course, Pascal is the very familiar unit. In India, at least in the academic world, everywhere we have shifted to SI units. But in the commercial world, different sectors use different terminologies. Say, for example, in the oil industry, they will use 1 million tons of oil equivalent, as an energy, right? Oil equivalent, or barrel of oil, right? That energy of 1 barrel of oil. So also kilocalories is a very well-known unit which is still being used, and of course joules. These are the SI units. So these are some of the important units, and now temperature is also a very important concept in thermodynamics, right? We have centigrade, Kelvin, Fahrenheit, Rankine. So centigrade and Kelvin are very, very popular, and 1 degree change in temperature in centigrade is equal to 1 degree change in temperature in Kelvin. The change is the same, but the absolute values are a little bit different. Say 0.01 degree centigrade is 273.16 Kelvin, or 0 degree centigrade is 273.15 Kelvin. So this concept of temperature comes from thermodynamics. Right? We will talk about it more later on when we go through all the laws. Now we have to understand. See, I was always telling about systems. See, your coffee in a mug can be a system, right? And but it is not an isolated system. This is a system and you have a surrounding. This is your surrounding, right? Surrounding. Surrounding. This is surrounding. So you have a system. So these are systems and surroundings. Sometimes we use the word control volume also, right? Control volume also. This is the system. So this is your surrounding, right? This is surrounding. So there is transfer of heat and work, right? Between the system and the surrounding. Transfer, right? So this is the transfer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, like this part is clear that what is transfer of heat, but can you explain what is transfer of work?
I'll tell you. So what is this transfer of work? Now, say I have a piston. Piston, right? And it has certain pressure P and certain volume, right? And say I give some heat P, right? Now, and here, of course, here also P. So here, yeah, P. Yes, P surrounding. I have outside P surrounding, and this let this be my control volume, right? Let this be my control volume, or system surround boundary of my system. System boundary. System boundary. This is my system boundary, right? So what is happening is now as I give Q, right? If I give heat Q, then what will happen? This will expand and the pressure will increase, and outside pressure is P. So I am pushing this thing against the outside pressure. So this I say there is work being transferred from the system to surrounding. I am working, right? From outside I am getting some pressure. Against that outside pressure I am pushing the piston, right? So I call it work transfer. Understood? So I am doing work on the outside. So, so this is
Yes,
called
sir.
work transfer. This we call as work transfer, right? When you may not appreciate it very much at this stage, when I'll go through the details and do the derivations, then you will start appreciating it, right? So this work is being transferred. Also, say for example, say I have could be some other these things also. Say I have another system, say uh, another something like this. Okay, so this is filled with say water, right? I may have a pedal. There's a pedal here. So here I have some liquid, right? And so I'm doing an experiment. I have water here, right? I have water here. Right. This is water in a bucket, and then whose temperature I can see. Whose water I can see because I put a thermometer. This is a idealized experiment. Then I'm putting a stirrer here, and then I have a pulley, and then I have a weight, and because of the weight, it is going to turn the pulley, right? Turn the pulley means it is going to put some force on the water and it's going to stir it. So it is going to rotate against some torque, right? So then there is transfer work from outside. So this is outside. I will have to define my surroundings actually. Otherwise, I cannot do anything. So say this is my surrounding. Okay, so this is my system boundary. So this is my system boundary. So the work is being transferred between the surrounding and the system, right? If work was not transferred, then how will the water get heated up? When you stir, right? Lot of energy you're putting in water against some, some force you are stirring it, right? Some torque. So through the shaft, work is being transferred. So this is also another way of transferring work through a shaft. And here work is being transferred because uh, against some pressure, the volume is expanding. This is one type of work transfer. This is another type of work transfer. In both cases, you are having work transfer, right? And here that work that you are transferring, it is being converted to heat. The temperature of the water will rise if if you stir it, if the stirring is strong enough. And if I insulate the beaker, the temperature will rise slightly. So here work is being transferred and converted to another form of energy, right? And here also you are giving heat and then this is doing work, because energy cannot be destroyed. It goes from one form to the other. So here work, you give heat here, and work, you do work on the surroundings. So like that. Okay. So I have given you some examples of, or if you have a coffee mug, right, in which you have hot coffee, and then what happens is the coffee temperature is going down. So now the energy content of the coffee, there is something called energy content, internal energy of the coffee will go down, right? Its temperature will go down, and there'll be heat transfer. So only heat transfer is there in this case. So I have given you several examples of work transfer, heat transfer, but it's not exhaustive. I will go into more formally, in a more formal manner. I'll do it. But let us have an overview. Now here, this is called an isolated system. Why is it isolated? Isolated means no work transfer. No work transfer. Isolated means no work, no work transfer, no heat transfer. That is called isolated. Isolated from the surrounding. Now here, what is this? This is closed. Closed means no mass, no mass transfer, no mass transfer, right? There is work transfer, but there is no mass transfer. In this case, is there any mass transfer? No, no mass is being transferred, only work is being transferred. So without any mass transfer, only it is closed, right? Only work and heat transfer can take place, but no mass transfer. What about this? Here, some fluid is coming in, right? M dot fluid, again going out, M dot fluid. So coming in and going out, mass of some fluid. And then you are also having work transfer and heat transfer. So this is a open system, open. See, sometime, but very important to have a boundary. Boundary is very important here. See, having system boundary is very important. This concept of boundary, you must know the boundary. It is not always true that the boundary has to be fixed. The boundary could be fixed boundary or flexible boundary, can be fixed or flexible. Flexible boundary. So what is a flexible boundary? Say, for example, this could be a flexible boundary. See, this system boundary is at the edge of the piston. As the piston moves, this boundary is changing, right? The boundary means up to the piston end. So piston moves, boundary changes. So it's a flexible boundary. But in this case, it's a fixed boundary. So you can have fixed boundary or you can have flexible boundary. So the first thing, when you do a thermodynamic problem, you must identify your system. You must identify your surrounding. You must identify the boundary. Then only that is how you formulate the problem properly, right? You will see that unless you define your boundary in a certain way, it's very difficult to calculate the transfer of energy. You will realize in some problems. So you have to judicially place your boundary, right? So that you can easily calculate the amount of transfer of energy. Right? That is very, very important. Okay. Now let us look at, I will, after some time I will start into more detail, like in the book form. Now let us look at this. Right? Let us look at this. Are you able to read this? Hello? Are you all able to read this?
No, sir.
Not
It's
really,
not
sir.
clear.
Not clear.
Sir, we can zoom in.
Acha, let me zoom in a little bit. Are you able to read it now? Is it fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh?
Now it's better.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's better. Now it's better. Okay. Let me do it a little bit more. So here we have temperature. Here we have temperature. I'm talking about properties. So here you have, you know, you have the temperature here, right? Temperature here. So let me make it fine. And here is some property. Let us say some property, some specific entropy. We will talk about the different properties. So here this is for water and steam. So here you have liquid, and here you have vapor. Liquid and vapor. So this is the, so here you in between you have liquid plus vapor coexisting, right? Now, so this is actually water. Actually, this is for water, H2O. Right? So let us see. So you can see 10 bar, 100 bar, right? 1 bar, 0.1 bar. So this is a constant pressure line. Constant pressure line. So if I look at this, I take this. So if I go from here, if I follow a constant pressure line, right? So if I follow a constant pressure line of 1 bar, right? 1 bar in the atmosphere. So I will go from here. So let me make it fine. So I will go from here. Right? And then I will go across this 1 bar. 1 bar. Just a minute. Just a minute. I have a phone call. Hello. আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে আমি না ক্লাস নিচ্ছি আমি ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে okay I was taking a call. So here, so I can go along this line. I will tell you what is happening. So then I follow this line, constant pressure line. So this is when you heat up water. So this is liquid water, right? Water, and this is steam. So when you heat up water, right, when it reaches here, you know, it is all 1 bar. Then this is called, this is the line x equal to 0, and this is the line x equal to 1. X means fraction of vapor. So what is x means? vapor, fraction of vapor. Okay. So here this is 0. So this is all liquid, x equal to 0 line, right? So this is your 0, and this is of course x equal to 1 line, right? So then it is all liquid. Then it comes here at this point, right? And then after that, slowly the vapor fraction will increase. So here it is 0. So here it is 50%. So x equal to 5 here. Somewhere here 0.5. So here it is by mass. If you have taken 1 kg of water, so half a kg of vapor and half a kg of liquid existing simultaneously. Suppose you have a container, right? In that container, right, I heat up that container, say, right? Say I somehow heat up that container, but that container is not rigid. When I heat it up, what will happen is inside there will be vapor formation, and we know the vapor has less density, it will expand. If I don't allow it to expand, it will be like a pressure cooker. Its pressure will increase. So here I have a flexible container like a piston, right? It is like a piston system, right? It is like this, right? Inside that. Some weight W I have given, and then here I have pressure, and I am measuring temperature and X. I'm measuring it. So because the weight is constant, the pressure inside will always be constant, and I am giving some say heat Q. Some heat I'm giving. So you pressure, temperature, all this thing. So what will happen is the pressure is being maintained constant because W is constant, right? W is constant. And as I heat it up, you know, it'll go to a state where it'll start evaporating. And initially the vapor content is 0. Then here it becomes all vapor. X equal to all means all vapor, fraction of vapor at constant pressure. So, and we know at 1 atmosphere, what is the temperature at which water starts boiling? This is boiling basically at 100 degrees centigrade. So as the temperature will become 100, so that is why it's saying 100, right? As the temperature will be 100 degrees centigrade, it will start boiling and you will have vapor, full vapor formation, right? Full vapor formation. After that, it will become steam, and steam temperature will go on increasing. Now, what are the other properties that is shown here? We are following a constant pressure line. Now here you see it is saying that these are this is your specific volume, right? This is your specific volume, right? This is specific volume. So many meter cube per kg, specific volume. So that means you can see that here the specific volume, see these are all specific, this is another specific volume line, this is another specific volume line. So the specific volume goes from here to here, right? As you go along that line, specific volume here is 0.1 meter cube per kg here. And what is the specific volume here? It is 1 meter cube per kg, 10 times. So from here to there, the specific volume has become 10 times. Naturally, so that is why this volume has to, this has to go up, right, as you apply heat. So specific volume is changing. Similarly, so what is this? 2000 kilojoules per kg. 2000 kilojoules per kg, right? So 2000 kilojoules per kg, I have to see what it means. So it is at constant pressure, specific enthalpy, specific volume. So that is called specific enthalpy. So this is also another quantity, right? This is also another quantity. H we call is enthalpy. So we have to learn how to get these different properties if pressure and temperature and the X is given. As I told you, from this class you will learn how to do it, right? So here, as the state of this H2O changes, the properties are also changing. So this is the enthalpy. The enthalpy is also increasing. Enthalpy is also increasing. Right. And then here again, you will have, this is also enthalpy. So this is also another enthalpy, right? So these are the constant enthalpy lines. This is also enthalpy line. So if it is here, then also you can calculate all the, so for a particular temperature, you know the temperature, you know the enthalpy, you can find out the specific volume, right? So here, basically here what we are having is, right, we are having H as a function of pressure, temperature, X, everything. And also we are having specific volume as a function of pressure, temperature, X, right? Okay, so unless you are able to read these property values from some handbook or some book or some software, something, you will not be able to do the problems. So these are not the only properties, there are other properties also, right? And also entropy. Here you are also getting entropy also. Entropy is the other property, a function of pressure, right? Or you can also look up another way, pressure as a function of temperature and S. Also you can look at it another way also. You can also say that I am able to get, right, you can also say that I am able to get, this is also true, pressure as a function of entropy and temperature. That is also, we are getting volume as a function of, you can look at it different ways, volume as a function of entropy and temperature, and X also as a function of entropy and temperature, right? So, so these are all interlinked, right? So you must have, as I told you in initially, given some one or two properties, you should be able to get all the other properties, right? Given one or two properties, you should be able to get all the other properties. So getting the property is also very important to be able to evaluate the property. Okay. So what I do is I save it, and then I will now write and then teach, because I don't have, I have not made those slides yet. So I will just read from, are you able to see this screen? This thing, are you able to see the rule page?
Yes, sir.
Achha, you are able to see. Then
Yes,
I can
sir.
write here. I can
Yes,
write
sir.
here on this. Right, I will write on this. So now we have some idea about, I've given you an overview of, why we need to, why thermodynamics is important, why, converting energy from one form to another is important, why we have to have a choice of energy source, that is important. So we have to come up with new devices where, instead of using fossil fuel, we should have, sun rays as the energy source. We have to come up with new thermodynamic systems, devices, and these, in the job field also, people with such expertise are needed. Uh, Otherwise, everything we have to import from China and Europe. That's the way we are doing. We have to do it ourselves also someday. Now, I have already given you some idea about the systems and surroundings that I have already given you, right? So you already know. So let me make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Now we already know about systems and surroundings that we have already studied, right? So I have to make it a little bit bigger, I think. Right, we already know about. Right, we already studied systems and so you now already have an idea. Now we will now give the concept of thermal equilibrium. Now whatever I am writing, this I will in the Moodle platform, these notes, whatever I'm writing, I will share that with you. So thermal equilibrium, if we talk about, we have one which is mechanical equilibrium. Chemical equilibrium. What did I write? I did write something wrong. I didn't mean thermal, I meant thermodynamic equilibrium. And thermal equilibrium. Okay. So what is meant by mechanical equilibrium? Mechanical equilibrium means that, right? It means that basically you will have uniform pressure, right? uniform pressure, then no unbalanced force, within system, right, or at boundary. Now, what is chemical equilibrium? What is this chemical equilibrium? Chemical equilibrium means no chemical reaction okay. Or transformation of matter, right? And then you have the thermal equilibrium. No transfer of heat, right? No transfer of heat. If you say this body is in thermal equilibrium with the environment, that means they are not having any heat transfer between the system and the surrounding, and maybe their temperatures are the same if these two bodies are in contact. The surrounding, if a body is in contact with the surrounding, right, then I will say it is in thermal equilibrium. Okay, okay, and also it means within the system also. Within the system. So these concepts, of thermodynamic equilibrium is very much necessary. Now, we will talk about the process. Now, while thermodynamic equilibrium is fine, ultimately left to itself, a system will attain thermodynamic equilibrium with its surroundings. Finally, if it is just left to itself, nothing is done on it. Okay. Now, whenever a device is working, it can go through several from one state to another, right? When I have a system and undergoing a thermodynamic process, it goes from one state to another state, right? So it follows a process. Now that process, while it is going from one state to another state, is it going through a set of equilibrium states, or is it going from one to another without going through equilibrium states? So there are two choices that we have. So let us describe an ideal process called the quasi-static process. That means it is going from state 1 to state 2, and along that path it is going through several equilibrium states. That is the type of system analysis that we are going to do, right? We will assume that it is going through several equilibrium processes, equilibrium states. So every time it attains equilibrium. Now, this is an idealization because it takes time to attain equilibrium. So this will be a slow process, right? But this is how we will think of it. Say, for example, okay, so we will have, many times we will use this word, quasi quasi-static process. Quasi-static process means, say, it goes say some states, say some P1, say P2, say some V1, say V2, right? So here it goes from here to here, right? So here it is, say, P1, right? V1 and T1 some. So then it is goes to P2, T2, V2. This is state 2. Now, when it goes from one to the other, right? So okay, so it goes to the one to the other, and then it many a times it could be non-equilibrium, right? And sometimes it could be equilibrium. So if when I use dashed lines, that means I do not, these are not equilibrium states, right? And but the ends are, this is equilibrium. Right? Okay, this is one. We can also have it another way. For example, it goes to several equilibrium states, right? So this will be this is our quasi-static process. So this will be our quasi-static process, right? Where we are going through equilibrium states, and this is, going from one to another where these are not well defined. Okay, so we have this quasi-static process concept where it goes through all these small, it attains equilibrium every time. And I have already told you what is meant by equilibrium, right? So this is a quasi-static process, and it's a very slow process. It's going through different equilibrium. Say, for example, I'll give an example. Right. And I have a weight here, right? It consists of many small thicknesses of weights. Delta W, right? Each of them is delta W, and total is W, right? Total is W, and this is delta W, a small amount. Okay, so here I have P V T, the temperature. Okay. So every time I can take out a small delta W. So if we have W1, right? So W1 minus delta W if you do, right? So then it goes from, it becomes P1, V1, T1. It'll become P1 minus delta P, right? It'll become V1 plus delta V, right? And some T whatever. Okay. I think time has ended, right? Okay, so we have to end it here. So like that, so delta W, delta P, delta V is tending to 0. Very small, right? Very small. Very small. So then only slowly, so it will go through, so quasi-static process. Very small changes. So it will go from, because it takes time to get the equilibrium. So this is a this is theory. This is how we do the thermodynamics, but in real cases you cannot achieve it. But for our theoretical analysis, many times we will assume it to be quasi-static, right? Quasi-static. We will assume it to be quasi-static. Okay. I think let us end it here. Was it supposed to be up to what time? Was it 1 o'clock, right? So can we end it here?
Yes, sir.
Let us end it here. Okay.
Thank you, sir.